The very first Manitoba Podcast Festival goes down International Podcast Day, Sunday, September 30th, 12 to 4 p.m. at the Park Theatre. Manitoba's podcast community gathers for an afternoon of networking, education, and so much more, featuring local podcast hosts, producers, radio personalities, taking part in panel discussions and Q&As. Take part in this fantastic networking opportunity. You can like us on Facebook at Manitoba Podcast Festival. Tickets are just $5. The very first Manitoba Podcast Festival, Sunday, September 30th at the Park Theatre.
Thank you to everyone who supports my dad's show. If you'd like to support Witchpolice Radio, go to patreon.com/witchpolice today.
You're listening to Garbage Hill, Winnipeg's first podcast network.
All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm in the backyard sitting at a table full of dirt, and I'm talking to the three
Hey, that's not nice to say about us. You don't know me well enough to take those kinds of digs.
I have to set the scene, right? We need to establish the location so the listeners. A very nice table.
Dusk PM. Dusk PM.
Yeah, Dusk PM.
And I am sitting with the three members of a band whose name I'm having difficulty pronouncing. And I actually looked it up just to see if I was getting it right. And of course, there's an American version and a UK version of how to pronounce the name. So I want you guys to maybe let me know how you say the name of it.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, Aphelion.
Okay, see, I wasn't sure it was Aphelion.
I think we got three different responses there.
I hear both.
Aphelion.
Yeah, they both. I've heard them both. I think the exaggerated O is a little more Canadian.
Yeah,
like
it sounds
the
like
Aphelion
yeah.
is
More like
pretty
Aphelion.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard Aphelion. That's the one when I hear people say Aphelion, I'm like,
I entered it into Google when we were trying to figure it out, and they told me Aphelion, but it was like Aphelion.
That's even weirder.
Computer.
Well, apparently the UK version is like you pronounce the P really hard, like Aphelion. Yeah.
Aphelion. Yeah, I like it.
There's no P.
I've been out in Ontario and I didn't have much sun. Otherwise, I'd be Aphelion. Aphelion.
Okay, Aphelion. Okay,
Aphelion,
so because there's a bunch of people talking at once, let's just go around the table here. Yeah. Everyone introduce themselves, what they play in the band, and then people can put a voice to the name. So start over here.
I'm Aaron Bacon. I play the bass guitar.
I'm Daniel. I'm on drums.
I'm Clayton, and I play the guitar.
Cool. Okay, so
he sure does.
So I think maybe like as someone who hadn't heard you before, I was kind of we set this up. I would like to first mention the cover art on your EP, which is it's amazing. It's so good.
Hey,
it's so good.
I'll bring out Dusty later. You can meet him. You can meet him yourself.
I mean, it's awesome. First of all, like it's really great cover art.
We got Adam Jeffkins to thank for that.
He
does all our art. He's done our logos. He's done the layout on our Bandcamp page. Nice. He's done our band photo,
which is the one with the heads floating in.
That's right. Yeah. Like,
that's rad too. That's awesome.
I will say he definitely deserves credit. He's done really great work. Definitely something. If you've seen our shirt design, basically our album was, the shirt design we had done, I don't know, a year or two ago.
Okay.
And we basically just told Adam, take that and elaborate it, make it more colorful, a little bit more graphics. He's been phenomenal to work with. He definitely deserves the credit.
Yeah.
Really professional, very responsive, really great with the feedback, working with our visions. A lot of the times, I'll talk with these guys and then I'll just this is kind of what we're going for, and we just do a back and forth. He's very affordable too. Yeah. So any local artists or anybody pretty much, Adam Jeffkins, I would definitely recommend him.
Cool.
Adam Jeffkins, yeah.
Well, I mean, the reason I bring that up is not, A, it's awesome, but B, it definitely sets a tone for you guys before hearing you. You know what I mean? Because it's super goofy.
And that's exactly what we were going for. We find how many hardcore metal bands can stand in a forest at once before it gets boring?
Right, yeah.
I think it's definitely something we go for in our image and our stage presence, just the way we present ourselves. Like we're not a really serious group of guys. There are enough metal bands that try not to smile and everything
of course,
like that. Whatever. We're pretty lighthearted about everything. We like to have a pretty good time. We like to have fun. We try to get people kind of into it and joking around. And I think the artwork really conveys that. It's pretty. It's a fucking cat in space.
Yeah, it's pretty rad.
Yeah. Space cat.
Awesome. Yeah.
Space cat. Yeah.
Space cat.
Do you think that affects how seriously people take you from the get-go, though? I mean, I don't mean in a negative way, because I thought it was awesome.
I don't know.
Well, it does, but like in a good way. You don't want to be taken necessarily too seriously, and that even like one in the artwork, and then two when you meet us like as people, and then when you listen to the actual music. I think that goofiness comes across in all of it, and I think that's really kind of the best part about what we're doing is
There's also a little quirkiness to like the riffs and stuff.
Right.
Too,
We're not always like super like neck wrecker kind of thing. Like we definitely do that, but we have some parts that are a little goofier, a little bit more laid back, and like you said, before you even heard us, before you even knew what we're about, the artwork kind of was like, oh shit, that looks
I want to talk to these guys.
Yeah. You want to pet that cat, don't you?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Space cat, who wouldn't?
I'll bring Dusty out for sure.
Awesome. We'll have to get a picture later with the cat. But
the fourth member of the band.
Do you think that being an instrumental band, do you think that kind of projecting the image that way through the art and everything, does that kind of help create a tone for it that maybe you otherwise can't do because there's no lyrics? Like,
it's a good point. I definitely think that any instrumental band has to make up for not having a lyric.
Yeah.
However you do that, and I think firstly most instrumental bands do that by making their music more interesting and more busy.
Yeah.
Typically because like if you have a vocalist, you're usually like leaving like just that blank verse.
Yeah, you're leaving space for them. Yeah, totally.
You don't have to do that, and we have to even more than not do that. Got to make it interesting. Like
give it some personality.
So like anything we can do to spice it up a little bit, including the artwork, I think really just helps towards that same end a little bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
How do you do that musically though? Like, I mean, how do you? And not that vocals are the most interesting thing about a band. I mean, that's often not the case. Right? In a lot of the cases, it's not the case. But
we definitely did have a lot of people like when we were shipping this out for reviews. We actually had like Subterranean and Metal Trenches. They're relatively bigger names, and they were saying like, yeah, you guys should probably get a vocalist, but it's still pretty sick. Like a lot of our stuff. Is pretty busy. Like it's filled up with a lot of shredding, a lot of fills, right? So. What I will say, if you've listened to our EP, that's a lot of older material that was written like early as 2010. Some of it was
really well. Yeah.
When I came around, I joined the band in 2012, and there definitely was like some rearrangements and kind of spicing up and elaborating. And for a while, we were looking for a vocalist. So maybe with that 2018 EP, which is really more like 2012 to 2015, that kind of segment in our history, maybe that stuff had a little bit more room for vocals, but we've written 3 new songs and we've got more stuff in the works that's definitely a lot busier that would really be tough to throw vocals into. And not only that, but like if we did have a vocalist, it would have to be more than just metal, right? Like you've heard on our EP, there's some Latin jazz, there's some there's some funkier stuff, right? So we'd almost need somebody that can like croon, like almost like like Mike Patton kind of shit. He does a lot of yelling, but he also does a lot more like.
Well, his range is crazy and stuff.
Exactly. And like our range is pretty all over the place, right? We're kind
musically,
of all over the spectrum,
a lot
right?
of jazz and weird world music, and like for me, I've often like been listening to like some weird Latin band with who's singing in like Brazilian Portuguese or something. Scoosh over here. And
what was that?
Scoosh.
Yeah, scoosh.
But it's so good, and I've always thought that it would be really cool for us to have like a not English singer.
But then even then, at that point, it would only be a few minutes at most out of our whole catalog, right? So it would be really tough to find somebody that can match the versatility that we're doing,
like full time throughout everything. Right?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, come in for a session and do a song with us during a show. But like, are we gonna need that for all the time that we're playing, right? So it's I don't know, maybe we're painting ourselves into a corner with the versatility and how busy we're going for it, right? It's really tough to find somebody that can keep up with that.
That's also, it's also like it could be we can write ourselves into a corner, but you also, that's kind of how you become the big fish in the small pond, you know?
Yeah.
You make that niche.
We're never really trying to write something and be like, okay, we want it to sound like this, right? It's more or less just whatever comes out, and we're pretty much down to play whatever we come up with that sounds good and is interesting and
regardless of genre and regardless of
you know, like we're not trying to be we're not necessarily a metal band. Right, we want to be able to explore whatever we feel like doing creatively.
Sure.
Right.
Well, I guess metal is the easiest category to put you in, though, right? Just
we're a metal.
Only a metal band would say we're not a metal band.
Sure.
Exactly,
The casual listener would be
even when we play jazz or funk, like we still sound like a bunch of metal dudes. For our friends that are like, you know, playing a lot of the blast year, like straight death stuff, like. We sound like jazz. So my friends in, like, you know, the jazz faculty,
you sound like metal.
We're definitely a metal. We are still definitely a metal band.
Sure,
you know? Yeah, I've heard some bands say it's like we're too metal to be jazz, but we're too jazzy to be metal.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I think is such a good spot to be in.
Right in the middle.
That's nice.
I would definitely say that, like, we're definitely a metal band that kind of delves into, you know, things just to kind of, you know, there's a minute or two interlude in some songs, but it's still very much metal.
Well, one of the things I've noticed about a lot of instrumental bands, and obviously these are not bands that have metal leanings because it's just how it works, but they tend to be very atmospheric. Like it's almost like there's lots of space, and you guys are the opposite of that. Yeah. Like you guys have so much going on.
We're growing closer to that as we grow older and mature musically. I think we're
so mature.
And I didn't say we are. I said we're getting more mature.
We're getting there. We're working there. So it's an ongoing process.
One example about fusing that, as we're getting like a little bit less busy, one could say like more tasteful maybe.
Right.
Is that like also a little more skillful at like implementing the influences instead of like, okay, I have metal influences and I have Latin jazz influence, so I'm going to write a metal part and a Latin jazz part and stick them next to each other.
Now it's starting to sound like Latin metal, you know.
Now it sounds like Latin metal.
It's kind of blurring together now,
it's
you know.
Cool. I really like it.
I think if you put the Aphelion or the EP recordings, you know, that relatively older stuff next to, you know, like the next 3 songs that we've done, it definitely feels like it's a different chapter. And it definitely feels like there's some progression. So I think, you know, like speaking for myself, but like I'm pretty happy with the way things have been changing. I definitely feel like there has been some progression in our style.
Cool.
I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, and you know, it seems like it's less, like Bacon just said, it's less metal, or it's not so much metal and then Latin. It sounds like everything's kind of like bleeding into each other.
Which is what you want, I guess, right? It's the best way to let your influences come in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I guess that's just, you know, a band kind of coming into their own.
More refining ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
didn't really have a question about the atmospheric thing, but I mean, an example I think of as far as instrumental bands locally would be Black Cloud, which is super. It's so much
metal kind.
Yeah, it's very like there's so much space in everything.
Yeah, they'll have like a riff that goes on for like 3 or 4.
Right, exactly, and it drags. But it's very evocative, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can really get lost in that versus with us, it's almost like, oh shit, I kind of blinked and I missed that part.
Yeah,
I need a recording to go over that and listen to that one part like 2 or 3 times before I really figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I guess some of the stuff that we're doing isn't as easily as digestible, right? Because maybe we're only on this one weird, complicated part and weird time signatures for maybe 15 seconds.
Yeah,
you got to sit with the metronome for an hour just for that 15-second
Well,
part.
it's almost like a band like Black Cloud is like a guy practicing Tai Chi, and you guys are that Bruce Lee where he's fighting an entire school full of people with nunchucks. This is all happening once.
Each school is a different style.
Yeah, right. And then you just this rapid fire. So how do you keep that up though? I mean, just the amount of technicality and the amount of just stuff going on.
Hours of practice.
But like just in a show setting, like I mean, it's got to be fucking tiring, right? Like
dude,
Adrenaline will raise the standard quo. You know, like you got to make it so that stuff's no longer reaching for you, but that level of playing is now just your normal.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I found with a lot of projects like one of my first bands like Sumega back in 2010. That was like my first project that bore fruit, right?
Okay.
And I remember writing that stuff, and it's like we have a part, and I have an idea for it that I can't yet play. Or I can play it isolated, but getting into the next part is really tough, and then doing the whole song is really tough. But then, again, it's just hours of practice, like really being dedicated and invested into it to the point where it almost feels like an obligation to play, right? Where it isn't just like, oh, we can get together and jam casually and whatever. Like, this is like, we got to keep our heads down. It's pretty intense with the amount of hours that we log into practice, right? Yeah. And then that what you had to reach for and what used to be a struggle is just, that's how you play now. Mm-hmm. Right, and that's how it is. That's how it is. It's just being dedicated to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is
a lot of it muscle memory at one point? Like, do you just kind of lock into the?
Absolutely.
There's a lot of work to get there.
Yeah.
But but it eventually becomes that.
Yeah.
Once you get on stage, it's just like autopilot, and you just already know. What you're doing.
Yeah. When you got to play it often enough that you're that comfortable that you can pretty much just turn your brain off. You're in the zone, and it just kind of happens.
It becomes like where you start to think about something too much, then you fuck up.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's weird.
Distracted.
Like when I play either in my basement where we jam at our house here, or when we're on stage, it's like, I'll black out, and that's when I know. Basically that's how it is, man. I played sets where it's like, holy shit, like 45 minutes has gone already.
Right,
We're already at our last song, like
that's the best thing when you're just when you're coming back, when you're just waking up from it, and you're like, oh, where did it all go?
And
that's how you know it went well.
As for me, that's usually how I know that I'm actually playing properly, right? Like when I'm not thinking about it, and it's you get into that state of flow, right? It's
I think it's a very jazz thing too. Actually, I think a lot of jazz players do that, where you can kind of see something click on, and they're just.
I think a lot of musicians should be like that. Right? For me, it would be weird if people told me that it wasn't really like that for them.
Right.
And it's funny because I've said to people, like, when I'm on stage, when I'm playing, I never am really sure how well I've played because, as I was saying, when I'm really on it and it's happening, and that's what I want it to be like. It's like a blacked out moment.
Yeah.
Right, when I maybe drop a stick or I kind of kind of choke on a fill a little bit, I'll still keep playing, but it's like I'm very aware that I'm kind of veering off the tracks, and that's like really when I'm conscious. So it's like throughout a 40-50 minute set, the only time I'm really aware is when I'm kind of fucking up, and that's just like half a moment here or there. Right. Everything else is just like, oh, fuck, that happened.
It takes you out of the zone for a second, right?
That's
when you
when you hit the bumper things on the side of the highway, and
that's right. Yeah. You're only really aware of, or you're only really truly consciously thinking of what you're doing when you're kind of veering off and you're trying to get back on track, right? Yeah. Otherwise, it just flows and it just happens, and then time is you're in a bit of a time warp, eh? Yeah.
So, not to dwell on the instrumental thing for too long, because I'm sure that's what everyone talks to.
That's really all we got.
In the absence of a vocalist, and just as a three-piece, and with that much going on in the songs, does everyone sort of take on leadership roles as far as like leading the songs, or is it more defined where someone will be sort of at the forefront? Because you're all doing so much at once,
pretty
right?
Equal.
I would say. I feel it's almost like, well, for one, I kind of want to ask, like, in which context you mean leading? Like leading for writing, leading like a front.
Well, no, I'm thinking
leading with your instrument function.
Well, I guess like in any kind of music, Well, in most kinds of music,
sometimes there's
a lead
voice that shines through.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Solos,
So there are points where it's like, oh, maybe Bacon and I are holding a rhythm down while Clay is kind of shredding. Sometimes, it's like, I'll get a little bit more of a drum break. I'll get to show off a little bit more. I still throw those in all the time, but like sometimes it's like we're all pounding away and we're all together. And sometimes it's like, oh, we'll lay back while it's not necessarily a guitar solo, but it's more busy with guitar. Or Bacon's got more of like, he kind of stands out a little bit while Clay and I are doing some chords together.
Yeah.
Right.
A useful thing, another way is with a lot of counterpoint. There's a lot, like I used a lot of counterpoint in my writing. Like Clay would have a guitar part, and I'd be like, oh, he goes up, I'm going to go down.
Right.
Yeah. So instead of him matching the melody, he complements it, but he's kind of still doing his own line.
That's a good idea of harmony. So you're voicing like good notes underneath me.
There's rules for it that you obviously don't have to stick to in counterpoint, but they're there for a reason, and the main thing that counterpoint does is establish the independence between the line, right?
Sure.
So no longer like it's obviously complementing it, but it doesn't make us sound like one big thing moving together. It makes us sound like different parts of one moving thing.
And especially as a bass player, in a lot of bands, the bass player will just be doing like root notes or something.
Yeah, that is not Bacon.
No, of course not.
I don't think any of us. I don't think any of us. Well, I guess you expect the guitar player in a metal band to really be kind of shredding, right? But as for Bacon and I on bass and drums, we definitely have plenty of opportunities and plenty of examples where we're really, we're taking, we have big voices.
That's sort of what I meant by leading too, right?
It's not like Bacon and I aren't supporting, drums and bass aren't always supporting guitar, right? Like we're, like,
and that's what I want. I don't want it to be like a dominant guitar instrumental band.
You could focus on any of us and be like, oh shit, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on there.
There's a lot of instrumental, even metal bands that are just like, okay, the guitar shredding, and they're just kind of laying down.
Right, everything else is kind of backing up the guitar, right? Yeah.
And I guess there's still are parts like that, but we definitely we take turns, and we all have a chance to kind of show off.
Makes it interesting, that actually like is another way to complement not having vocals and being the instrumental is like, say with that vocal 4-piece backing up and they have a vocalist. The vocalist the whole time is going to probably be in that spotlight, and the only time that he comes out is probably going to be for the guitar solo.
Sure.
Exactly.
And that's going to be their thing the whole time. So it makes it really interesting to have a bit of an atypical function as far as the arrangement of what we're playing goes.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's an atypical band anyway. Because you don't have the singer you're playing, the style you're playing is kind of an amalgam of different things, and
There's a good example on the heavy breakdown in Patrol Troll on our EP. It's a pretty heavy crushing riff. Did I say
Troll Patrol?
You said Patrol Troll, yeah.
Troll Patrol.
It went through a few renditions,
simplified version that we still can't get right.
And like the main riff was this chromatic diminished descending thing, right?
What?
During the breakdown there? Yeah.
It's just and it's just that 4 times, a little variation at the end each time.
We really drag that out, but then
and it's really crushing. But then I go to this other thing that's like really high up on the neck and totally off, and
it's
just
like kind of a polyrhythm a little bit, in a way, just
totally
where it's landing. Yeah.
It's like a polyrhythm and a polymeter.
But he kind of breaks away from the theme and kind of does his own thing, which kind of stands out a little bit more, while Clay and I are still holding down that
at the same
time.
A good, like, something you have to do there, otherwise it's gonna not work so well, I feel like, is kind of what we do. In that when I go high up in the neck, like, all of a sudden the bass is missing there.
Right.
That's the big thing. Like, the bass player, that's where my heart is, and I know that that's gonna be the first thing that somebody bitches at me.
Do you always use the looper? You use the looper at that part, eh?
Well, I was going to, but then we do like a decelerando, like, through that whole thing. Like, we really drag it, and it's not
it kind of isn't always.
But then you drop to these
meter,
second inversion voicings. I think, and you put another bass note under your chord right when I go up. So it works perfectly.
You guys have just lost like a certain percentage of the audience is just like, I don't know what.
It's great.
I don't even know what they're talking about now.
Only music nerds.
Well, that's with the 7-string there at that part. That's why I like playing that. Even though I don't use the 7 in that song, it's only that one part I would use it.
But it's actually interesting that you have the technical chops for that kind of stuff, because I think a lot of people, I mean, obviously there are tons of metal bands that have really good chops, but there's also, I think a lot of people who are not really into metal will just be like, oh, it's just a bunch of screaming and pounding and chugging,
I think the screaming is the best example for people who aren't in metal that it's hard to appreciate, like, the technique and the level of skill behind it. Like, screaming is fucking hard.
To maintain for more than a couple seconds,
It's just like a dumbass over here. And to maintain for a whole set every night.
Brutal.
And then still be able to talk the next day.
And not destroy your voice. That's anybody can do it. Like, I think it was the thing Melissa Cross said. Like, a lot of the guys, what their big mistake is, they use their emotional response to get the passion behind their screaming, and then they just
end up throwing.
And they technically just destroy their voice. Yeah,
so they have
for
to
sure.
get, like, technically skilled at it.
Yeah.
You know, and.
Well, I mean, I used to sing in a band where I screamed, and the first couple of shows it would be dead. I mean, we didn't play that often, but I can't imagine. I mean, I figured out eventually how to do it properly, but but I mean, after the first,
it's a little bit of a different dynamic when you're practicing versus when you're on stage.
Totally, because you're more like amped up and you want to project it more and stuff. And it took a while to just figure that out. And I was just some shitty local band, So I can't imagine someone who's doing that for every night, like on tour. It's just crazy.
Well, there's a good list of them famously that destroyed themselves. Doing that,
for sure. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So I guess you guys don't have to worry about that part of it, but
suppose not.
Yeah.
I get pretty beat up playing, I guess.
I bet.
You're still yelling in the back there.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Sometimes when we have like a little quarter note break, it's never really any longer than that. I'll let out a little yelp.
How physical is it playing live with this stuff? Just because of the level of complexity and there's so much going on, and like it's heavy too, right? Like, is it? I mean, are you guys pretty much dead at the end of a set, or?
I think it's probably different for me and him.
I'm on my butt the whole time, but I still move more than them.
A lot of finesse going on, so he's got to do some pretty refined movements.
Right,
sure. Precision. Yeah. Me, I like to slap.
You get pretty into it, though.
And I feel like stage presence and rocking out is part of the show.
Totally.
When we played before it changed to Chadstock, when it was still Carlstock back in 2015, we did a show, and there, it's just a little outdoor stage, and Bacon actually was down on the floor, like headbanging, like spin kicking while he's playing.
Nice.
So a lot of the times I'm keeping my head down, trying to not die and try to keep on top of it. And I'll look up briefly, and he's just like windmilling and shit. And I'll think like, oh fuck, that's awesome.
I remember, I think I saw a video of at the Park Theater there. We played a CD release at the Park Theater, and someone had their kid on their shoulders, a little kid, a very young one, and Dad's like really serious and looks over, starts smiling.
Well, it kind of comes back to back down to trying to stay in that flow state, right? I'll try to have a little bit of like stage presence and make eye contact with a few people, but then usually I just fuck up, right?
I remember who that kid is. Steven's kid.
Okay. That was awesome. But in terms of like how physical our playing is, like for me as the drummer playing that kind of stuff, like I wouldn't be able to play the way I was if I wasn't as fit as I was.
Sure,
and probably vice versa. I'm not as fit as I was if I wasn't playing like that, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I got to be pretty amped up on caffeine, a little bit of weed and beer or two when I'm on stage, and I gotta be in a very physical, ready state to play. It's very physically and mentally demanding playing this kind of stuff.
I had a little bit too much the last show there.
That's the curse of playing last. I didn't realize how drunk I was when I was on stage until after, and I'm like, oh fuck, it's not just that I was in a flow state and I blacked out, I kind of just blacked out.
Would you call that blacked up when you're in a flow state, or blacked?
I like that. That sounds good.
Blacked up. Blacked up.
I like that. Yeah. Where do you think you fit in within the local metal scene? Like, are there other bands that are not necessarily doing the same sound as you, but that you feel like you kind of like a kinship with?
Maybe.
Definitely.
We've played with a variety.
We played with a lot of like new metal and shit like that. We played. I think maybe like Electro Quarterstaff.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't even know if they're really active anymore.
Realm of Anubis just came back. I think played their second new show. They as bass player, me and Hunter, I think was bass player, and he was one of the other guys I saw locally doing a lot of the same techniques and stuff as me personally. So, and I think our very first show at Club St. B ever was with Head Speaks Truth, Realm of Anubis, Bloodline, us, and one other band. I can't remember.
It was Jeremy Simpson's old band.
One of his old bands.
I can't remember who they were.
I can't remember either.
That
was a pretty good show.
I don't know. I guess
those guys are close to us stylistically, probably, but most of them aren't around anymore.
I guess with like how much variety there is in our style, it's tough to kind of have any analogous bands. I wouldn't say that there aren't, right? Like, there are plenty of bands that are kind of like all over the spectrum as the same way we are.
Sure.
So by no means is this like totally original music, but it's definitely a little bit more. There's more going on than just straight metal, right? So it can be kind of tough to pin down influences.
A lot of the time, like
especially
for a
locally.
Show,
Sure.
Yeah.
you get a lot of good response from a show that doesn't have like 4 bands that sound exactly the same.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So usually you
You get
to
a
have
variety
nice,
of the audience too.
Yeah,
You know?
variety of
Yeah.
audience. Like as the band, when you get a different type of band,
Everybody's
other than
bringing
yours,
their own crew
They
kind
have a
of thing.
different crew, but then
Yeah.
like the people is almost like there's almost such a strong kinship there. Even like the
They're all there
music
to-
is
yeah,
almost irrelevant.
They're all
what
there to see good
style it
music, I
is.
guess.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, and like
yeah.
people in the other bands have been like so instrumental and supportive. Just the scene, you know, like they say.
Oh, yeah, it's always the
most
best,
of
yeah.
the people at the shows are just dudes in other bands and like the other dudes' girlfriends, you know.
Well, most people who listen to
yeah.
this are people in bands too, right? I mean, it's just
exactly.
is that how it works? Yeah, yeah.
And that's it. It's I find like maybe there's not so much like similarities musically, but definitely like personality wise and like
Cool.
goal wise and
Yeah.
just the
Well,
stuff we like.
With a lot of the shows, or probably at least half of our shows that we've done in the last since ever, I've ended up organizing myself.
Okay.
And usually when I'm trying to get a bill together, I'm trying to make it so it's not just a metal show. You know, like with our EP release show, we had one band. They billed themselves as Cock Rock Party Prog, you know, so
Okay.
they had some synth, you know.
What
they
band
had
was
some
that?
that was the Hot Shelly Longs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty,
Good name.
pretty.
Good
They're a really
Pretty
cool
awesome.
group. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the band opening, Hemorrhoid, they were kind of like post rock, post metal
Okay.
kind of stuff, you know. So you get a little bit of
Instrumental.
variety on the bill.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah. So it keeps.
Hemorrhoid.
Hemorrhoid.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Yeah.
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 as you've mentioned a couple times throughout the course of this interview here, this band's been around for a while, obviously, and the songs have been around. Sounds like for almost a decade or so.
In its current rendition, not as long, but there's been a few different lineup changes. Yeah.
Yeah, I joined Aphelion, or I joined Clay and Bacon in 2012.
Okay, which is still quite a while back for a band.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. So we were playing with another guitar guy that they had, and they had a bunch of you guys had a whole catalog of material.
I was actually a vocalist for that one practice.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
One practice. That's all it lasted. Yeah.
Well, the one with him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Two before we joined.
I guess
right.
He didn't like me, and he drove him out. But so there have been, some times where we were playing with, we had a second guitar player, he left to go pursue a PhD. We had another guitar player that played with us for another, 2 years or so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we ended up parting ways with him, and we've been a three-piece ever since. And that would have been 2015 since we've been just the three-piece.
Okay.
And like I said earlier, when I joined these guys, like I pretty much learned material that they had already written.
So with you coming in kind of after some of the songs had already been written, and then also having another guitarist and cutting down to a three-piece, how much did the songs change over that time of the lineup changes? Like, are they essentially the same way they were when they were initially written, or is it radically different?
I think the radical change was when Dan showed up, because the drummer just functionally controls like the feel of the song.
Sure, yeah.
Essentially, for
the guy that you had before was definitely very much like
style,
a background kind of drummer, right?
Yeah, he was like jazz rock, was nowhere near as busy and Philly and stuff, which is like what we were like. Somebody who was like as busy as us,
right?
So that was it was a little bit of a weird fit before, and then it fit really well.
As far as the music goes, like I guess we pretty much like accept and know what we want now. Like we were writing before, kind of like music that's for like a full lineup kind of deal.
Okay.
Now it's just like we know what we were doing now.
Yeah, we know what we have to work with and everything like that. We kind of we've been playing together for 6 years now.
We know each other's strengths.
That's right. Yeah. So we can write something between Clay and I, and then be like, oh well, Bacon will probably play something like this. We'll give him free reign to write into it, but he'll kind of work with what we've already laid down.
Okay.
And and then like how things have changed with, I guess like. With their older material that they had written before I came in, like there were a lot of ideas where I was like, well, what if we kind of elaborate on this one little part and make it a little bit, add a few more like syncopated shots, or make that fill last longer, kind of thing, right? Rearrangement, they'd have ideas where it's like, okay, well, you got a riff there, but what if we kind of structured it like this so it kind of flows a little bit more, and it's a little bit more structure to it, I guess. So
when you recorded the EP, or when you're recording in general, do you add more to it, or do you keep it strictly what you can play live? Like, are there extra layers that...
Pretty raw.
Yeah.
We don't play with like any click tracks or any backing tracks.
Yeah.
It's
when we're live,
only what we can make sounds with ourselves.
Yeah. Well, we added
guitars are doubled up also, just to make it thicker,
but
the rhythm parts
what you hear on the EP is very much what you're going to hear when you hear us live. With the exception on like the single that we released, Drengus Khan, there's some cowbell and Wiro in a Latin section, right? Other than that, like we're not trying to really build it up into more than what it already is, right? There's already a lot going on, so
There's a couple little like transition noises, just noises that we put in between songs that aren't
but
like
nothing
part of
that
the song, just something to make the EP a little more
to make it flow better, kind of thing.
But there's nothing where it's like, oh, I didn't hear that part live that I wanted to hear that they played on the EP.
Nothing we do live.
I can appreciate kind of like the studio production where they're adding more to kind of make it I guess maybe a little bit more of a finished or polished product, but we're keeping it pretty raw when we've recorded so far.
So you're not adding like trumpets and shit in the Latin parts or anything? That'd be cool.
No, we were talking about getting my buddy on to like do like the 6 bars of cowbell on one part, but that didn't happen.
It's a lot of cowbell. So it's a very specific section.
That's the one thing, because we're gonna get one dude up there to do it for the one part, and he's gonna miss it.
Right, and you guys are all so locked in your blacked up zone, right?
He's blacked up. That's right. He's only got like 11 seconds to do the thing, So,
right.
Out of a 40-minute set. So
How much of the song is improvised? Is it all very much set? Like this is specific parts,
I probably
or can it stretch?
The most, if any, improvisation. It's all pretty written in stone. I think I'm just getting cheeky with some improvising in certain parts.
And Yeah, for me, like I'd say 95% at least of what I play is like structured and kind of pre-rehearsed.
Right.
There is a little bit of room for kind of coloring outside the lines, and I think in our newer stuff too, we've added room for improv.
Yeah,
we actually
pretty much one solo I do improv in.
Cool.
Stuff.
We have a solo section where guitar does like X amount of bars, and then bass does X amount of bars, and during those times they'll kind of elaborate and improvise a little bit,
right.
and I might do some along with that.
Okay.
So I guess maybe in some of our newer stuff, there's a little bit more improv and a little bit more. It's a little freer.
Yeah.
But still, with like when you're playing like technical metal, it's happening at a pretty fast pace. Like,
yeah, you need to be on.
A lot of it is.
Yeah,
it's very tight for the most part, with the odd exception where we can kind of play around.
We have been like. Not like with any of our material, but like just like when we're getting together to jam, we do like freestyle jams a bit more than we used to. Because before we were all just like, oh, look at us, we can all do weird time signatures and stuff. So we're trying to always do that when we play, and it would like sometimes be hard to line up. But now we're getting each other's style a little more, and we can respond to each other, and we can listen a little more, and we can kind of predict it a little bit and do the same thing and actually make it sound like it might have been on purpose.
That's cool. That's what you want, right?
Exactly. And I think that's gonna bleed into a lot of the writing that we're hopefully gonna be doing.
Okay.
It'll be a lot more like open, I think, than the previous stuff.
Because that's, I think, always something that is a question. I mean, again, you're not a jazz group, but you have elements of jazz for sure in there. And it's always like, one of my favorite things about jazz is when you hear something that's, certain types of jazz anyway, you hear something that's completely chaotic, and then all of a sudden, like, everyone comes back at the exact same time, and you realize that this is not as chaotic as it sounds, and there's a lot more planning and detail in that.
Yeah,
but
so there's always the balance between like being
inside out.
Right, yeah.
There's always the balance of like having the room to kind of like dick around and I just did something that I've never played before and might not ever be able to play again, but we still know where we are in the songs, we still know what the other people are doing,
right?
We know to play to that. We know when the changes are still happening, right?
Still using the motif.
Improvising over a structure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Rather than just free chaos and the noise.
As fun as that is.
Yeah, super fun. Yeah. Cool. So the EP, it just came out recently, right? It was
late July, and then we played our release show actually on the Aphelion, which was July 6th this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So we kind of
the sun farthest from Earth. Is that
That's right.
That's
right. Yeah. Hey, you did your research.
Oh, I knew. I look up how to pronounce it, right? So I was like, I might as well look up what it means too.
Yeah.
Cool. And did you release it physically or just digital?
Yeah, just digital. Yeah. Like
that glorious cover art it doesn't exist in physical form.
No,
we've had a number of like demands and requests.
Yeah. But the amount of money we'd have to put into it versus what we think that we might be able to get back from it.
Sure.
Not like we're trying to make money, like realistically.
No, but you need to survive.
Yeah. Well, none of us are using this as a stream of income. That's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. For the band to survive, there has to be money in it.
Of course, yeah. Do you think part of the reason for that, not bothering to release it physically and put that kind of money into it, is that because, in a way, that you were sort of past these songs now? Like, I mean, this is old.
I think very much so. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we wanted to get the older material out and move on. Even though it's like not older, like we're the only people in the world. It's older.
Right, it's new to everyone else.
Exactly, yeah. But just for us, I think it felt a little dishonest, if you will.
Sure.
To be like, because for me anyways, and I think for us a lot, the music is all about like the expression, right? It's really like kind of therapeutic.
Yeah.
So to be out there and it's not like this stuff isn't yours. It's obviously still ours and came from us, but to be like, oh, this is like not quite where I'm at right now, and I wish I could play something that was more along what I'm into right now.
Yeah.
I think helped a little bit to like put a priority to get it out and move on a bit, but
so that's finally just documented.
It was one of those things. I think like in 2016 we were saying like we just got to get these songs recorded and out there, and then if we never play them after, then that's cool. But like they were too good to just let them kind of peter off into obscurity, right? Which is probably what they'll do now. But now they're actually
they're gone. They're out there, right? So people can do what they want with them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, other people can listen to them, and like it doesn't feel like new material, even though it like technically just came out. But I think it still does, like it is still worth a listen to. Like there is some cool stuff going on there, but again, it's like it's not exactly where we're at now.
Yeah.
I still have a fun time, like playing that.
Sure.
And when I do play it, and when I've had to relearn it after not playing for a while, I'm like, oh shit, this is challenging. This is fun stuff.
Yeah.
But like this isn't the way. If I was to write something now, or if I was to write to that music now, it would come out a little bit different, right? Yeah. Sure. And I guess that's standard with everybody. I putting this record out as it feels outdated, it just makes you wonder, like, I'm sure a lot of other bands are feeling the same way, where it's like, oh fuck, we were over this like a year or more ago.
Yeah, but all the time spent on getting the recording set up,
you can't just not play it, right? Yeah, well, like, you know, from when the inception of a riff to when it's actually a finished song, to when you get into the studio to when it's released, like that's a lot of time in between all that, right?
Sure.
So yeah, you know, we're definitely not the first people to have this problem.
No, I think it's a fairly common one, actually. Unless you're someone, I mean, I feel like the few people who don't have that problem are people who are solo artists where it's just like an acoustic guitar and vocals, because they can just record 17 albums if they have the material, right?
They got their home studio that they know what they want to play, and they have the means to, you know, streamline everything and make it a priority.
Right. I mean, as soon as you introduce drums to that changes the dynamic, right? I mean, it's not going to be as easy. You can still record, I guess, in your basement if you wanted to, but it's not.
Totally. Don't have to worry about paying band members and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that we're doing
Who's getting paid? Who's getting paid?
Like, surprisingly, there's like more bands that I thought in the city that were like, oh yeah, these dudes are only around because they're getting paid.
Oh really? Like some of the members are just.
I think I could be wrong about this. I think the guys in Apollo Suns like are all paid to be.
I can see that because they have so many lineup changes though. Like I mean, every time I see a picture, it's like a bunch of different guys.
Well, when they just did their more recent tour, the guys on horns are like all members of the jazz faculty at the U of M. Like, I've seen them all gig at least a dozen times, right? And they're like, oh yeah, we're touring with this rock band right now.
Yeah,
you know, and obviously they're getting paid.
Apollo Suns a great band, by the way, though. Awesome band.
I was with Endless Chaos just a couple weeks ago. Filling in for them at Armstrong, and I was just paid to do that.
Cool.
Pretty much, just bring my guitar.
It's an alright gig if you can get it, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So if people are hearing about you for the first time on this show, what's the best thing for them to do if they want to find out more, hear more of your music, hear the EP?
We got our recordings up on our Bandcamp, so that's http://www.aphelion204.bandcamp.com.
I'll link to that too, so people can just click it.
Yeah.
Also, like we're all out there. Come meet us, say hi, follow us.
Yeah. We're on Facebook.
Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is aphelion.wpg.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think I'm pretty sure I'm following you. So I'll tag you and stuff.
Sure,
people will find it. People will find it.
Right on.
And then you guys are playing Chadstock.
That's right. Yeah, we're playing Chadstock. It's going to be the last weekend of August. I think on the 25th is the date. We're playing on the Saturday.
Okay.
And a ton of other really great local bands and a couple bigger touring bands as well. It's always a blast. You know, you can come out. There's a couple hundred people that show up. You get to camp out.
Yeah.
It's a great atmosphere. Great way to spend the day or two. You know, there's going to be tacos.
Yeah, I saw that.
Galactic tacos.
It's very cool. Yeah. Well, my favorite thing about the poster for Chadstock is just the illegibility of all the band names.
Yeah.
It's the best. Like metal band name logos are just fantastic. Yeah. You guys have it pretty decent. You can make it out. You know, but
it's pretty clean.
Yeah.
I think if the order of bands is to be taken from the poster, I think we're at the end of the first group of bands.
Okay.
I think we play around like 4:30. I think is our set time.
Cool.
So right in peak heat.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great for
afternoon
me.
heat. Yeah. You're gonna die.
I've enlisted at least one girl. I'm gonna get some palm leaves. I'm gonna get a pretty good family.
Great.
Yeah.
You just gotta get Tom.
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah.
Tom or Marco.
I eat grapes off of either of them.
So people should check out the show. I did
mean off them, not from them.
Directly off.
Oh yeah.
If you want to hear more episodes of this show, go to witchpolice.com. You can find all 300 and whatever episodes for free download and streaming. Yeah, it goes back to 2012. There's a lot of these. And I'm releasing 2 a week now, so it's even crazier. It's getting ridiculous. That's all there. You can also tune in on Sunday nights at midnight on UMFM, and those are old episodes that kind of get a second wind. So it could be 4 or 5 months after we record this that airs. So obviously Chadstock will have been over, and the
EP has been out for a while. It was probably a great time.
Right, exactly. I'm sure it was fantastic. But it's kind of just an extra boost, which is cool. So if someone missed it, it's always there online. But if you didn't hear it the first time, oh cool, I should check this out, and then you go download it. So
yeah. Thanks a lot, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for having me here.
Appreciate you coming down, man.
Right on.
Let's go meet Dusty.